Hi everyone, welcome back. Today I'm going to teach you how to make my favorite dessert, a Cuban flan. Super easy, super delicious, wonderful, silky, smooth custard dessert. So I hope you will try it and let me know how you enjoyed it. Okay, so the first step is preparing our sugar. We're going to make our caramel, and we have to decide what kind of pan we're going to use. What mold are you going to use to make your flan? Now, if you have a pan similar to this one, it's a heavy bottom pan, I can melt the sugar and pour the custard for baking in the oven in just using one pan. If you don't have something like this, you could use a cake mold, an 8-inch cake pan to make the flan, but usually they're not very heavy on the bottom, and if you try melting the sugar, making your caramel in a cake pan, it might burn easily. So I would suggest that you use a separate saucepan to melt that sugar and bring it to that nice caramelization, and then pour it from that little saucepan into the mold that you will be using. But in my case, I'll be doing everything in the same pan. Here we go. I'm going to take my cup of sugar and I'm going to put it into that little pan, which I'm going to use to melt this sugar into a nice caramel. I'm turning the heat on to pretty low, and we're going to allow this to start to melt. Now, you might have seen other tutorials showing you to put the sugar along with some water. I happen to like to just make it with just the sugar and just keep an eye on it so that it doesn't scorch. So my sugar is melting, and contrary to what some may say about not mixing the sugar around, I don't find that to be a problem. I like to mix it so it doesn't start burning in one place before another, and it all melts to a beautiful consistency. Trust me on this. Don't be afraid to mix it. We're going to just keep an eye on this, make sure that the edges don't start to burn. Make sure you have a little pot holder to hold your pot. And we're just going to mix and mix until it's all nice and melted. You play around with the heat, turn it up, turn it down. What we want is for it not to get burned. You can see already that it's starting to melt. Lower the temperature. Don't want it to get too hot. But as you can see, whether you mix it or make it using a little bit of water, we're all going to have the same beautiful rich caramel. Do whatever's most comfortable for you. Keep in mind that when you remove this from the heat, it will continue to cook a little bit. So you're going to pull it off the heat almost a little bit before it's of the desired color, which is a nice amber color, but not dark. You do not want it to be dark because it will taste bitter. Lift it off the heat so it doesn't get any darker. This is about as dark as I want it to get. I've taken my caramelized pan off the heat, set it aside. Now our next step is to separate our eggs. I'm going to use 3 whole eggs and 2 additional egg yolks. I've cracked 3 whole eggs and I have 2 additional egg yolks. And we're just going to whisk this together. All right. And the next thing we are going to do is add 1 can of evaporated milk, 1 large can, and this is, let's see, 12 ounces. 1 can of sweetened condensed milk. This is a 14-ounce can. And I'm going to use the evaporated milk can to measure out some whole milk. So about 12 ounces. Is that what we just said? 12 ounces, yep. 12 ounces of whole milk. We're going to mix this all nice and smooth. No need to use a blender. Save yourself the need to wash another pot or pan. All we need to do is get this to blend nicely. And we're going to add 1 teaspoon of pure vanilla extract. The next step is going to be just pouring this into our prepared pan with the caramel, but I'm going to use a strainer so it catches any little pieces of eggs we may not want in there. So one other thing we need to add to this, because it's just necessary for pretty much any baked product, is just a little tiny bit of salt. So mix that. And we're ready to put this into our pan. Okay, beautiful. We're ready to get our custard into our oven, and we're going to cook it using a water bath. So I have an old baking pan here that I use, a rectangular one, and I'm going to take my custard and put it right inside. Now I'm going to transfer this to my oven set at 350 degrees, and this could take anywhere, depending on how efficient your oven is, from an hour to an hour and a half. The end product will have a jiggly center. You're not going to cook this until the center is very firm. There will be a little bit of a jiggle. You're not going to put a knife into it or anything like that. So what we want is to get a nice, delicate color on top, and trial and error will get you to the exact point that you want it. But I'll show you what I mean by jiggly when this is all done. Okay, so just wanted you to see what it looks like in the oven in a water bath. We'll be back to check on it in about an hour. So I've removed the pan out of the water bath, and if you can see, if you can see that it's soft a little bit, but there's a little bit of brown around the edge, and this should be just right. So now the hardest part. We have to let this cool down to room temperature, and then we will put it in our refrigerator overnight. It needs at least 8 to 10 hours of cooling in the refrigerator so that it will be nice and firm when we're ready to flip it over tomorrow. Okay, so our flan has been chilled in the refrigerator overnight, and I'm sorry, I wanted to show you how to invert it onto a serving dish, but the video camera was not cooperating, so I'll show you the finished product. Bring it down. Here it is. As you can see, it just doesn't get prettier than that. Simple to make and a beautiful presentation for a special event. Here it is. And I think I will have a little taste. That is so wonderful. Please give it a try. Let me know how you enjoyed that recipe. God bless you all, and see you soon.